Predictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Welcome back to GB News. Coming up next, it's The Late Show Live with Ben Leo, live in Washington, D.C. Ben, what's coming up in the show, mate?
Alex, viewers and listeners will be pleased to know I found the American version of Jonathan Liss in the studio tonight, so we're going to have some fun with that. I'm only joking, Of course, we've got more in-depth coverage of the Bondi terror attack, 16 dead. We're going live on the ground in Sydney, and an update on the Brown terror attack as well. I spent 2 hours last night on the show covering the shooting, 2 dead at Brown University in Rhode Island, 9 injured. I went to sleep, I woke up, and then this happened as well. So it's been a bit of a weekend, and also I've got a great front page to show you from the Australian version of the Daily Telegraph. Hang tight for 2 minutes and I'll show you. Let's do this. It's The Late Show Live. Good morning. Welcome along to The Late Show Live. Coming up tonight.
A very sad duty this morning to report that 16 people have been confirmed as being killed, 15 innocent people and 1 perpetrator. There were 42 people in New South Wales hospitals overnight, and the victims' age ranges are from as young as 10 to 87.
Yeah, we all know by now, of course, terror in Australia. Among the dead is a 10-year-old girl.
The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son.
A father and son are the offenders. The father is dead, the son is still alive. There's also this incredible moment when a brave man tackled one of the gunmen to the ground, and you have to say it could have been so much worse.
There were 2 improvised explosive devices found at the scene. They were taken by our rescue and bomb disposal unit. They were found to be active.
2 improvised devices were found but were not activated. Luckily, we'll cross live to Sydney on the ground for all the latest updates, including the big question tonight, and I'm sure it will roll on into tomorrow. Were the Iranians behind it? Because Australia is looking into a potential leak to the attack. Meanwhile, in America, a drive-by gunman unloads on a house in California after it was decorated for the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Is anywhere safe now for Jewish people? We'll also get the latest updates on the Brown University shooting here in America. A man in his 20s has been arrested and his name has been released to the press. That was after 2 people were killed and 9 injured. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Good morning, hope you're well, thanks for your company. The world is once again in a state of shock after yet another terror attack on Jewish people. This time, we all know the details. The scene was the world-famous Bondi beach on a warm Sunday morning in Sydney, Australia. 2 gunmen opened fire in a well-known Jewish community area. 16 are dead. Among them, tragically, a 10-year-old girl. Here's what one eyewitness saw.
I just heard what sounded like fireworks going off, and it was multiple going off. So I sort of opened the blind to see what was going on, and I just saw an older lady get shot, and she was on the floor. Saw an older guy get shot, very badly injured on the left-hand side, and I just saw a bunch of people screaming, running towards me. I didn't know what was going on.
It's kind of like, I don't know, fish in a barrel. Like, the guy had I think of what I've been told, he had an automatic rifle, big gun, standing on the bridge, and just target practice.
We've also heard this evening from Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. This is what he said just moments ago.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil. An act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores in an iconic Australian location, Bondi Beach, that is associated with joy, associated with families gathering, associated with celebrations. Today, all Australians wrap our arms around them and say, we stand with you. We will do whatever is necessary to stamp out anti-Semitism.
Police tonight have said that the offenders are a father and son duo. So instead of taking your son to a football match or maybe going to a barbecue or, bonding over sport, they instead embark on a mass terror attack. The father is among the dead. And it could have been so much worse because police say they found 2 improvised bombs at the scene. Luckily, they weren't activated. And of course, this attack happened on a holy day, the beginning of Hanukkah, because that's what evil people do, isn't it? They target religious festivals, they target the vulnerable, they target children. A reminder, a 10-year-old girl has died in this attack. There was, however, a moment of true heroism when one of the gunmen was tackled by a man. You can see it on your screen now, and I'm sure you've been seeing it all day, but this will never get old, this footage. Meanwhile, in the UK, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, said police are increasing their visibility in Jewish communities. And in America, a Jewish house was shot at in California. I think around 20 rounds were discharged from a car speeding by after the house was decorated for Hanukkah. Here's a clip of the driver opening fire at the home and then shouting, "F the Jews." Australian newspapers have been published in the past hour or so. This is the Australian version of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow. It says, it's been blurred out on screen, but I'm going to read it. It says, "You bastards, at least 11 dead in terror attack on Jews in Bondi." And my love and affiliation for the Aussies will never flail, especially in light of what happened yesterday in Sydney. And front pages like this, do you know what it does? It makes me admire the Aussies even more. The resilience, the attitude, the commitment never to back down. With me now is Liam Mendes, a reporter at the Australian newspaper who was at the scene in Bondi. Liam, good evening. Thanks for your company. Really appreciate it. First of all, condolences to you and everybody else down under. My love extends to you at this time. What a front page from probably your rival newspaper, actually, the Daily Telegraph. "You bastards." That says it all.
That's exactly it. You bastards. That's right. The Telegraph just put it out there bluntly. This is a massacre against Jews in Australia. It's horrific, and it needs to be called out as exactly that. And at the moment we've got 16 people who have died here. That number is sadly expected to rise. There are over 40 people that are injured, still in hospital, some of them incredibly critical. Just to paint a picture of how, close to home this is for everyone. Everyone knows someone that's been very closely impacted by this. I've got a friend who was shot. Thankfully, he's fine. But, you know, everyone has been incredibly touched by this, and it's just, you know, I mean, since October 7, we have seen in Australia this rise in issues surrounding anti-Semitism within Australia, and here we are.
Well, yeah, you were right. You had was it the Melbourne synagogue attack last year, which I think your intelligence services down under said was linked to Iran. I think there was a separate attack on a kosher grocery shop, perhaps, as well. And today, in the English version of the Daily Telegraph, Liam, it said that Israel is blaming, or at least suspecting, Tehran is involved in what happened at Bondi. If you can just explain to me, please, Liam, how you're, from a human perspective, from just a, you know, an everyday Aussie, what was your day like? When did you wake up? How did you find out what was happening? And tell us about your mate as well, who was shot. How is he? What's he told you? Where was he shot?
Yes, so I was, mate, I went to the beach yesterday, a beach called Redleaf. It's a harbour beach. It's 10-15 minutes away from Bondi. I had friends. I saw them on Find My Friends. They were near Bondi. But, you know, this was any normal Saturday. It was a beautiful, Sunday. It was a beautiful day, 30 degrees, sunny. Everyone was at the beach. Everyone was outside having a wonderful, wonderful time. I went home. I hadn't even had a shower yet, and I get a message from someone that says, who said, you know, shooting in Bondi, and I jumped straight in the car and headed there to report. And as you can see in the drone footage there, I mean, the scene is just horrific. There's, you know, this is a terror attack that has been captured from every single angle, including the ground, whilst you know, the assailants were still, you know, firing at people. Captured from the air on a drone. I mean, we have never seen footage like this before, and you know, this has just happened like that. I'm out the front of their home. It's still heavily occupied by police. But last night I was also here up until around 2 a.m. when police were raiding this home. They set a very, very large cordon, a huge perimeter. It was very difficult for us to actually see what was happening, but we were able to see, we obtained some footage of people being led out, 3 individuals, 2 women, 1 man being led out with their hands up. Heavily armed police were there. They had their weapons ready. They had armoured vehicles there with them. These people were removed. I saw one of the men was handcuffed. His hands were behind his back. He was led away. I understand that those individuals have now been released. But, you know, this is an ongoing situation, and it's such a horrible, you know, it's a horrible time for not just Australia, but the entire world.
Yeah, indeed. This is an attack on Australia, of course, but it does feel like an attack on the West, an attack on our way of life and our culture. You're right, Liam. Just finally, do you know much about the 10-year-old girl? Do you know who she is, what the circumstances of her death? I mean, any death is tragic, but I don't know. I speak as a parent. I cannot imagine losing a child in that way.
I mean, that's it. I mean, these are so many young families. Just to paint a picture of what was happening, this was a Hanukkah celebrations, you know, people, it's as simple as lighting a candle. That's the extent of what was happening here. Young families. Bondi is the eastern suburbs of Sydney. It's an area of Sydney that is heavily populated by people of the Jewish faith, but not just the Jewish faith, all faiths, and that's it. It's, you know, families, young families going out, enjoying their evenings. That's all they were doing there. It's as simple as that.
Liam, sorry to be talking with you and meeting you for the first time under these circumstances. As I said, I love your country. I think you guys are great. Sending my love to everybody down under, and you know, may the fight back begin. I think they picked on the wrong people, Liam. Thanks very much for your time. Liam Mendez, reporter at The Australian. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know what you think about that Daily Telegraph front page. I won't say it again, I've said it twice now, but UB words. I just think it's great. I love it. With me now is Michael Rowe, chairman of the Young Jewish Assembly. Michael, good evening. Thanks for joining the show. How are you feeling tonight? Because we've seen not just this situation in Bondi, this is a litany, this is the latest in a litany of attacks on Jewish people in Australia. As I just mentioned to Liam, you had the Melbourne's synagogue attack, an attack on a kosher grocery store. In Manchester in England, we had the stabbings by a guy called Jihadi. He was literally called Jihadi, like it's some episode of, I don't know, Brass Eye or something. How are you feeling tonight?
Good morning. I mean, we are absolutely shocked and disgraced by what has gone on today. But as you just listed there, Ben, there is constant attacks on the Jewish community, murderous attacks, and unfortunately these attacks are only getting more frequent and more deadly. And we are absolutely now calling for action to take place to stop this ever happening again. I seem to come on GB News and other news outlets. We're writing articles, we're talking to people about so many different attacks taking place. We have the warm words afterwards. We have the politicians putting out the statements. We have the increased police presence, which of course we're very grateful for. And this happens across the world. And then things die down for a short period of time. And then we find ourselves, unfortunately, a few days or a few weeks later in the same place. And this just cannot keep continuing to happen. As you say there, just in Manchester, at the last major Jewish festival, we saw a deadly attack with murderers on the streets of Britain. We've now seen that on a beach in Australia. What is going to come next? When is the world and the West going to wake up and start saying we have to tackle the root causes of anti-Semitism? Otherwise, unfortunately, we're never going to get to the bottom of this, and these attacks are going to keep happening. It's beggars belief that really nothing has happened to this state. To this date. I mean, I'll just give you an example, a UK example. Yesterday, on the streets of our second city in Birmingham, we saw protesters apparently protesting for the cause of Palestine. We saw banners there with Hamas, terrorist organisation, symbols on the streets of our second city. Police did nothing to combat it. We haven't seen a robust response. We haven't seen politicians calling it out. And these things only embolden the terrorists, only embolden the haters, and lead to murders like we've seen, terrible murders that we've seen today in Australia. So we are calling for action. We need something to change, and we need to change fast, because quite frankly, we can't allow this to keep happening.
Yeah, and it happens here in the United States, Michael. I was at the second anniversary of the October the 7th attacks in New York in October, and there were people there, the videos online, it went viral, people waving Hezbollah and Hamas flags and calling for the destruction of Israel as a state. Not even, it wasn't about Palestine, it was about, or even the war in Gaza and the civilians and the children dying, it was about the eradication of the Israeli state. So just tell me, Michael, before I let you go, what does need to be done? You say this can't happen again. I think we know it will happen again, unfortunately, but what does need to be done practically?
Well, first of all, we need to say stopping the hate marches across the world, stopping the emboldening of terrorism, which is taking place on the streets of Britain and across Europe. We need to start saying Jews need to be treated just like any other group in society. They need to be properly protected. We need to do what any right-thinking member of society would want us to do, which is stamp out terrorist supporters, which is stop the hate marches, which is enforce regulations to say that if someone is displaying hate on the streets of Britain, they will no longer be allowed to do that. They will face the full force of the law. As I say to you, politicians put out lovely statements after these terrible attacks happened. We saw today, it took the Australian Prime Minister quite a while to even acknowledge the fact it was an attack on Jewish communities. And we see that there's always excuses for these things. As you say, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and people try and make out like these are two different things. The fact is these things are happening because of a hatred of Jews, because of an age-old hatred of Jews, of anti-Semitism. And there's only one way to stop it, and that's being tough on the people who are displaying this hate. Most right-thinking people in society, of course, completely condone what happens. And I think the majority, or I know the majority of people across the world, across Western nations, would say that if someone is displaying support for terrorist organizations, if someone is showing violence, someone has a history of violence, then it's up to the police to take firm action against them. We're being too soft on terrorism. We're being too soft on people displaying hate. And it's time to start taking really firm action to stop that. I'll just say that, obviously, this attack took place on the first night of Hanukkah, which which is the Jewish Festival of Light. It's a time when we say that we are here to spread light across the world, to make the world a better place. That's what we are trying to do. It's those who are trying to do the opposite, to spread hate and to spread darkness, who are perpetrating these attacks. And we have to say, now is the time to stop them, to not embolden them, to really take firm action to prevent this ever happening again. And you know, I hope that we can see that action from the police and politicians.
Michael, thank you so much for joining the show. Appreciate your company. Michael Rowe, Chairman of Young Jewish Assembly. Stay safe is all I can say, Michael. Unfortunately, that's the fact of the reality. Joining me in Washington, D.C. is my panel tonight, Democrat strategist Joel Rubin and the Daily Mail's US political reporter Victoria Churchill. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome along.
Good to see you, Ben.
Victoria, I said earlier online, I said we're not just dealing with Islamists, nutjob Islamists, who you know, find solace and martyrdom in killing infidels. We're also dealing with sort of white guilt simpletons, do-gooders really, who go along with these Palestine marches and they hold signs such as Globalise the Intifada and River to the Sea and so on. And I don't think really they know what they're doing, but they embolden the likes of Iran and these terror groups to go and do what they do. So do you agree with me? We're not just dealing with nutjob Islamists, we're also dealing with a wave, a societal disease of people who don't understand much about geopolitics, but are proving themselves very useful idiots indeed.
Well, I do think that the apologists for radical Islam and radical Islamic terror are really the people that embolden individuals like this. I mean, for example, you look at, you know, just across Twitter, right? You have people that went from having Ukraine flags in their bios to having, you know, watermelons and Palestine flags in their bios, which means that they are making themselves out to be geopolitical experts, really on the flip of a coin with whatever today's hot topic may be. Now, you know, I do think that even on the American right, we have quite a big anti-Semitism problem. I think it used to be relegated to fringe areas on the right, and I think, you know, now some individuals that are getting millions and millions of views on videos they post that want to blame Jews and Israel for every single problem that is a problem not only in America and across the world. I think they really stoke the flames of anti-Semitism, particularly here domestically, and so I think there's plenty of people on the left that do it, but I think on the right we need to do a better job of calling it out, particularly here in America.
Yeah, but I guess Joel, my point is, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about on the right, or these weirdos who go after clicks, the likes of Nick Fuentes, so on and so on. But particularly in the UK, I'm talking about these kind of middle-aged, white guilt people. Maybe most of them, they're retired. A lot of them are sort of trust fund kids, and they go on these Palestine marches, and they just, again, the only way to describe them is just useful idiots.
Well, you know, Ben, I can't say I'm dispassionate about this topic. I'm an American Jew. I've worked for years in Jewish politics as well as Democratic politics, and I have been furious with those people for the last couple of years since October 7th. They have not been advocating for peace. They've not been advocating for understanding or working with Jewish communities. They've been advocating resentment and hostility and intimidation towards the Jewish community. And so what we see now, what's spreading here in the United States and elsewhere, is an intimidation campaign, not just about killing Jews and anti-Semitism, as we're discussing, but also an attempt to put Jews, American Jews in this case, and Australians as well, on our back foot to lose support for Israel. That's part of the big intimidation campaign, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about with this, including the Telegraph's line tomorrow, which is that Israel is basically linking Tehran to what happened in Sydney. Not a surprise, to be honest. Let me just ask you a very quick question before we go to a break. What would President Trump do? How would this administration react if this had happened in America yesterday and not Bondi Beach?
Well, he would have immediately come out strong and hard, and he would have had the police on the ground, and he would be speaking out aggressively against the language that incites this hatred.
Okay. Right, next on The Late Show Live, we'll be crossing live to Australia, and I'll be speaking to a huge name in journalism over there. Can't wait to speak to him. And yeah, let us know in the time for the time being, gbnews.com/you'll say what you think of this sorry mess. I woke up this morning, I felt helpless. I just felt totally helpless. I had no motivation. I just, you know, it's another one, just another one. Back in a tick.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. I just want to bring you the front pages from Australia tomorrow. I know we normally do UK papers, of course, American papers as well, but it's pertinent we show you some of the Australian front pages, starting with the Australian. The headline reads, Massacre of Jews, at least 10 dead. I mean, the number now is 16. 10 dead, 16 injured, global shock at atrocity, hero disarms mass killer. The next one is the Herald. Bondi terror massacre. The headline reads, evil gunmen armed with explosives fire into crowded beach. Hero tackles shooter, saving countless lives. Slaughter of Jews killed in Holy Day attack. And for me, as a former newspaper man, this is the one to show you. It's the Daily Telegraph tomorrow in Australia, the Australian version. At least 11 dead in terror attack on Jews in Bondi. We've blurred it out there on your screen. Apologies if you're offended by this, but the headline reads, you bastards. Pretty apt, I think. My panel are back with me in DC, Joel Rubin and Victoria Churchill. Joel, you've just handed me this letter. This is a letter from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Yep. We haven't got it to show you on the screen, but I can show you with the piece of paper. This was a letter written in August 2025, a few months ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
What is it? He's written to the Australian Prime Minister, Albanese, and what's he saying?
He essentially said, you have a major anti-Semitism problem happening right now in Australia, and you better fix it. It's tied to your support for Palestinian statehood. It's tied to the rhetoric happening on the streets right now. And if you don't take care of this, something bad may happen.
So just 16 weeks ago, Netanyahu penned this letter. I'll read you a few lines from it, not all of it, it's fairly long. It says, "Dear Prime Minister Albanese, I'm concerned with the alarming rise of anti-Semitism in Australia and the lack of decisive action by your government to confront it. Throughout the past year, anti-Semitism has scarred Australian cities. Since your public statement signalling recognition of a Palestinian state, it has intensified." He goes on to list various attacks, anti-Semitic attacks in Australia, including the synagogue attack in Melbourne, the kosher grocery shop as well. Netanyahu continues to write, "Your call for a Palestinian state pours fuel on this anti-Semitic fire. It is not diplomacy, it's appeasement. It rewards Hamas terror, hardens Hamas's refusal to free the hostages, and emboldens those who menace Australian Jews, and encourages the Jew hatred now stalking your streets." By the way, viewers and listeners, let me just remind you, it wasn't just Australia who recognised Palestine as a state. It was our dear leader Keir Starmer in Great Britain. It was also Macron in France. And Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State here in the United States, came out some weeks ago and said he could not believe the incompetence of the likes of Starmer and Macron for recognising Palestine as a state during hostage negotiations with Hamas. He said it nearly blew the whole thing apart. Absolute bunch of amateur clowns. And it just says, this signs off this letter from Netanyahu. It says, "History will not forgive hesitation. It will honour action. Anti-Semitism is a cancer. It spreads when leaders stay silent. It retreats when leaders act. I call upon you to replace weakness with action, appeasement, and with resolve, and do so by a clear date." And he gives a deadline of September the 23rd. Anyway, 16 weeks ago. Did he take any notice, Joel? Did Albanese take notice?
I think this is one where they're going to stare at this in the history books and really look at this as a warning that was not heeded. Look, the Australian Jewish community has been clamoring for support from its government for a very long time. I'm in touch with leaders from there. Over many months, these individuals have faced threats directly. Their community institutions. You've laid out the attacks. This call from the Prime Minister of the State of Israel saying, do something. Nothing heeded, and now we have people murdered on a beach.
Victoria, there's a comment here on gbnews.com/your say saying, great coverage, Ben. Here in Australia, people of all ages are streaming in and out of nearby churches, lighting candles, praying with tears rolling down their cheeks. It feels like there's a seismic change in the country since the attacks. Do you think, I mean, hopefully that's right, but when I was speaking to Michael, our previous guest there, he was saying this can't happen again. But I'm sorry, I don't see how it wouldn't happen again. I don't want it to. Maybe it'll be Britain. Maybe it'll be some European country. But I don't see how this doesn't happen again because our leaders don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, leaders have to listen to the people in the communities that are bound to be affected by this. And, you know, I think what that letter from Netanyahu that Drovkos brought to the show proves is that leaders don't always listen, regardless of how hard you push them. You know, that's, I think, why it's important for us to use our voices in the media to call it out as much as we can. Hopefully, maybe they can listen to us a little bit more than regular people. It shouldn't be that way, but maybe they can. But, you know, again, I think you're absolutely right, Ben. This is a problem. Of course, we talked about it here in the U.S. It's a problem in the UK. You know, of course, we talked weeks ago about, you know, Shabana Mahmood marching in pro-Palestine protests. So there's really, I think, little hope, at least with the current makeup of the government in the UK, that they will do things to heed this. And another thing that I noticed just today that was interesting is that Sadiq Khan, of course, Mayor of London, said that he was increasing police patrols in Jewish communities right now during this holy time. But he also turned off the comments on his post on X, which I think is interesting. You know, maybe that was done to protect the Jewish people, but maybe it's because he did not want to hear about what he has done himself to exacerbate this problem.
Let me tell you, there's nothing more cowardly than muting comments on your X posts. You know, snivelling little... Anyway, Zara Sultana as well. Keir Starmer, Zara Sultana banging out a tweet today saying her thoughts with the Jewish community. Come on, don't give it a rest. You've been spending the last 12 months doing everything you can to put the Jews down. A disgrace. With me now is a former foreign minister in Australia, Alexander Downer. Alexander, good evening. Thanks for your company. What do you make of this letter that we've just seen from Netanyahu to Albanese, basically warning him of the scourge of anti-Semitism from August? And also, Alexander, the link tonight from the Israeli intelligence services that maybe Tehran is involved in what happened on Bondi Beach.
Well, on the latter issue, we have no idea at this stage, and the Australian intelligence agencies are looking into that. But we do know that in the past, the Iranians have been providing funding to people here to get them to perpetrate anti-Semitic actions, such as daubing buildings and setting fire to a synagogue and so on. And as a result of that, the Iranian ambassador to Australia was expelled from Australia a few months ago. So there's that. But Netanyahu may have written that letter, but Netanyahu has come out today and very strongly attacked the Australian government, saying that its position on the Hamas war had contributed to a rise of anti-Semitic feeling in Australia. And I'm sorry to say he's right. That is true.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Alexander. You were a foreign minister under what, the Howard government initially, before taking on other roles. Was Iran a threat back then in the sort of was it the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yes, Iran, I mean, it was run by the same people who, more or less the same people or same type of people who run it today, a sort of extremist theocracy, and they were certainly in those days arming and supporting the so-called Palestinian resistance, Hamas, Hezbollah, and I think it was pre-Houthi, but Hezbollah and Hamas were certainly being armed and supported by the Iranian regime, and so were the militants in Iraq, because that was quite a problem as well after the fall of Baghdad in 2003. So yes, that was a problem, but this is unlikely to be the core of the issue. The core of the issue here in Australia is the rising tide of anti-Semitism since the 7th of October 2023, and the government's reaction to that. The government's reaction to it has, of course, to be, they've said they're opposed to anti-Semitism. Of course they have. But on the other hand, they have turned sharply against Israel through the war in Gaza, to the extent that in the end they joined with the UK and Canada, I've forgotten who, France, I think, to announce that they would support a Palestinian, they recognise a Palestinian state. This is sending out all the wrong messages. It's not just the detail that counts, it's the messages that have been so bad.
Indeed. And just before I let you go, Alexander, you served, I think, under Tony Abbott as well in his government. He, of course, famously stopped the boats. It's an issue that we have now in the UK. Many people look to Tony Abbott and say, why can't we just do what Australia did? But if Tony Abbott was in charge now, a guy who's held in high esteem by many Brits, how would he be reacting tonight? And how would he, on a wider issue of anti-Semitism, how would he be dealing with it, do you think?
Well, I don't think Tony Abbott or before him John Howard would have ever got Australia into the position it's been in. Australia would have strongly supported Israel after the 7th of October massacres, and would have been very understanding of Israel having to deal with Hamas right on its border and continually firing rockets into Israel, and even before the massacre took place. So Australia wouldn't have gone round calling for, the Israelis to desist in their hostilities, and that they implying that they supported the ICC indictment of Netanyahu and his defence minister and so on. None of that would have happened, and Australia would have been a strong supporter of Israel. And people who are marching in the streets and denouncing Israel and denouncing Jews and calling for a global intifada and so on, they would have just been completely marginalised. Whereas, of course, they've become part of the mainstream conversation because the government has expressed, if not agreement with them, some sympathy for them.
Yeah, Alexander, if only our political leaders across the West had the same kind of balls and cojones as the guy who tackled the terrorists on Bondi Beach did, maybe we'd be in a little better place. Alexander Downer, former Foreign Minister in Australia, thank you for your company tonight, appreciate it. Stick with us on The Late Show Live. We're going to have a veteran of Australian journalism. I'm not going to reveal who it is, you may know who it is, but he's a veteran of Sky News Australia, amongst other outlets. I'm very much looking forward to speaking to him, and he's next. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. I'm joined now by Sky News Australia host and veteran journalist, TV broadcaster Andrew Bolt. Andrew, good evening. Great privilege to have you on The Late Show Live on GB News. Thank you. I just want to show you, I'm sure you've seen it already, the Daily Telegraph Australia front page tomorrow. It simply says, Andrew, you bastards, you Aussies, you don't pull your punches, do you?
Well, I'm afraid we have been pulling our punches for a long time. People haven't been game to call a spade and say what needs to be done, and they've gone along with pandering to minorities that are not assimilating as they should, being represented at times by Muslim organisations that do not speak out against extremism. And it's all very well to treat a shocking event like this as, oh my goodness, no one could have seen it coming. Well, yes, they could, and give thoughts and prayers, and then move on. This is the bitter fruit of many years of pandering, of bringing in a number of people, not all, a minority, but a very profoundly difficult minority that are not fitting in and bang, here we go. What can we do?
Yeah, well, I think as we have with the small boats crisis in the UK, which Tony Abbott sorted out, I don't know why we can't do the same. Whether it's one rapist, one child attacker, or one terrorist, that's one too many, I'm afraid. Andrew, when did you first see the decline? When did the rot start? Under who and why?
Well, it's been coming in a long time. I mean, we had a Prime Minister, what would it be now, about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, who was warned that taking in immigrants from the Lebanese civil war, from clannish villages that had people who had no English, they were going to struggle to fit in. He was warned not to do it, but he did. And it's been like that ever since. I mean, we've had 5 separate terrorist attacks by Muslim refugees, people we brought in as refugees, and 5 times they attacked Australia. Countless plots also foiled. These are attacks where people were killed or seriously hurt, 5 people dead. It's just a miracle this hasn't happened before, what we saw in Bondi yesterday. So really, for people to say, oh my goodness, you know, never saw this coming, how blind and deaf do you have to be?
And the tragic thing is, Andrew, I don't see anything changing. I spoke to somebody else earlier from the Jewish Assembly in the UK who was basically saying this needs to end now, this needs to end. I said, Michael, as much as I'd love it to end, my friend, it's not going to end. And I don't say that with any pride or, you know, sort of bombastic attitude.
You've seen it yourself in Britain. I mean, demographic mistakes are impossible to fix, right? Particularly in an era of mass immigration, where people then start forming colonies rather than assimilating their own colonies. You've got towns that are very, very heavily Muslim, for instance. You're even now got politicians being elected on a Muslim platform in a British Parliament. You're well on the way yourselves. How do you fix that? You go and tell people you must not think this way? Well, they're not going to agree with you. Their worldview is different to yours. And you've just got to put up with it, it seems. So I don't know how you fix any of that. And it's particularly bad here because Britain at least has got some very strong traditions that people really feel great loyalty to. You've got magnificent symbols, the King, for instance, Westminster, all that kind of stuff. Here it's less so. We are a country that is now ashamed of our past. We fly 3 flags now, the Australian one, and one for Aborigines and one for Torres Strait Islanders, so we're dividing by race. And that whole thing of feeling ashamed for our past, not preaching a pride in it, and not giving people something that they are proud to belong to, well, naturally they retreat to their ideological or religious or ethnic affiliations from now conflicts in the Middle East, obviously. And that is just so hard to deal with. We need a profound revolution. I don't even know that we're at that point, a cultural revolution to actually try to stem this in the future.
Andrew, what's your thoughts on so-called remigration and mass deportations? Because there's a growing conversation, a growing rhetoric in the United States, where I am tonight, and indeed back in my motherland, Great Britain, about mass deportation. So that obviously includes illegal migrants who shouldn't be here, foreign criminals in prisons, but also President Trump the other day here talking about the deportation of certain green card holders, those who have been given certain visas who aren't US citizens, kicking them all out. In the United Kingdom, again, the word remigration being bandied around by the likes of Rupert Lowe and those sort of to the right of the conversation. Do we need to get to that point? Do we need to start getting aggressive with a remigration policy?
Well, I think we have laws where people are supposed to go home if they've broken our laws or whatever. We've had trouble sending quite a few back to countries like Iran, which will not accept people who they don't want to come. And we have no power to make them do so. We've had a very important court decision a year or two ago which said exactly that, leading to the release of hundreds of convicted criminals into our streets, which is just extraordinary. So I think that debate will sharpen. It's interesting. You've got obviously your Nigel Farage. We've got our Pauline Hanson of the One Nation Party. who's got 5 senators, no one in the lower house. Well, now she has. She's just had a defector who was a former Deputy Prime Minister, so he's there. But she's suddenly shot up in the polls from originally 4 or 5% to now 17, 18% in the polls. I think that'll go even more because the main parties have not been ready to discuss the kind of fears and concerns that most people now have about immigration and integration that you've just expressed. There is not that debate, and the main opposition now is being dragged kicking and screaming by the pressure of One Nation to actually say something. They've been working on their policy. We're yet to see it, but I think this will absolutely galvanise that kind of debate.
Andrew, thank you so much. And just on the topic of Pauline Hanson, I remember years ago she was mocked and ridiculed like some insignificant, circus act, just like Nigel Farage was in the United Kingdom. But isn't it funny now how times change? They stick to their guns, they're principled politicians. Even people like Jeremy Corbyn. I don't agree with Jeremy Corbyn, he's a commie. But at least you know what he stands for decades and decades. President Trump, he's been banging on about the same thing for decades. And the likes of Pauline Hanson, Nigel Farage, at least you can say, well, you're being authentic. Whether I agree with your politics or not, you're being authentic, and isn't that a rarity these days in politics? Andrew, thank you so much. Real pleasure speaking to you. I would send you my thoughts and prayers to Australia, but it seems a bit pointless these days. We're going to go live to a press conference now in Australia, in Sydney. What kind of press conference is it? Is it Bondi Beach? Is it from the police? Let's take a quick listen to this.
That it was only a matter of time until blood was spilt. During the summer of terror earlier this year, we very narrowly avoided this, despite synagogues being set alight with Jews still inside. But last night, tragically, our luck ran out when our community was subjected to a heinous terrorist attack as we celebrated the first night of Hanukkah, a festival which is meant to be characterized by light and joy. This was a massacre, a pogrom, here in our city, here at one of our most cherished landmarks, Bondi Beach. 16 precious lives taken for no reason, dozens hospitalized, children mowed down by gunfire, fathers and mothers being felled by bullets, the elderly having to take shelter behind trees, lives shattered irrevocably in a single moment, young children who from this point forward will never have a father, parents who have lost their beloved 10-year-old daughter. This is the moment we've arrived at. This isn't something we should ever have seen in Australia. An attack not just on the Jewish community, but on our country more broadly. Thousands of people being subjected to this terror on what should have been a carefree and tranquil summer's evening here in Bondi. 2 years ago, on the forecourt of the Opera House, anti-Semites chanted, "F the Jews," and "Where are the Jews?" Sadly, last night they found the Jews. For 2 years, people have paraded in our streets and universities, calling for the Intifada to be globalized, a catchphrase which means kill Jews wherever you find them. Last night, the Intifada was globalized and came to Bondi. What we've seen has been the logical progression, demonizing Jews with rhetoric, which slowly builds up to acts of violence, and then acts of violence which last night took life. Today, our thoughts and our prayers are with the family and friends of those who are murdered. We're also praying fervently for the swift and complete recovery of the dozens of people who are still hospitalized, many of them in critical condition. We pay tribute to the first responders who so bravely stepped in at great risk to themselves to disarm the assailants and to save life. Friends, the Jewish community is strong and resilient, but today we are shattered and reeling. The onus is now on the authorities to establish that Jewish life is safe here in Sydney and Australia. The world is looking at Sydney and our country as one of the global epicenters of anti-Semitism. And now, after 2 years, this is a moment for strong, unequivocal, and overwhelming leadership. The time for talk is over. We need action. To those who have said over the past 2 years, that anti-Semitism has no place in Australia. Yesterday should have finally made it clear that anti-Semitism has well and truly found a place here in our beloved country. I thank the countless members of the Australian public who have reached out to offer support and solidarity to the Jewish community. This is a time when the Jewish community desperately needs to hear from you and to hear from civil society leaders. To my community, to the Jewish community, over the past 2 years, you have been asked to show such incredible strength. You've had to draw on reservoirs of strength and resilience that you never should have, that no Australian ever should have. But today I ask you, please keep your head up. We will get through this. Like Jewish communities throughout the ages have handled the travails of their times. Today is the first day of Hanukkah, and I would generally end my remarks by wishing everyone a happy Hanukkah. But obviously I cannot do so today. So on this oh so dark day during the Festival of Lights, may I end with a simple prayer, a simple hope that the light of our Jewish community and our country that we love so much once again shines brightly. Thank you. Alex?
We have suffered an almighty blow here from which I fear we will never recover. We are a community, we talk about that a lot, and what does that mean? A community is but a family of families, and our family was ripped apart. Our family has been shredded. I want to talk about one of the victims of the massacre yesterday to show you what we have lost. He was a dear friend of mine. He was the rabbi here, Rabbi Eli Schlanger. Anyone who knew him knew that he was the very best of us. This is a person who rose each day with a simple mission of doing good, whatever good he could find, whatever kind deeds he could perform. Nothing was too difficult for him. He would drive out to regional parts of the state to sit with prisoners in our jails and listen to their stories. He would drive every day to Waterloo and Redfern to the public housing to sit with the elderly who probably didn't understand a word he was saying, listen to their stories and feed them and ensure they had meals and kosher products in their homes. He was a person who illuminated our lives with his kindness, with his grace, with his generosity. And there is no replacing him. There is none like him. I don't want to speak of his legacy and what we should do in his honor. It's too early for that. In time, we will bury our dead according to the Jewish rituals. We bury our dead as early as possible so that the soul can ascend. Then we will begin our intense period of mourning, the period of Shiva. But I know what Eli would have wanted. I knew him intensely well. I held his newborn baby just 4 weeks ago at the synagogue that he ensured was built. He would want us to celebrate Jewish life. That's all he lived for. To be proud and open as a Jew, to wear his kippah, to lay tefillin in public. And this event that happened here for 30 years was the jewel in the crown of our communal calendar. It's when we got together at the beginning of the Hanukkah festival, at the beginning of the summer, and we rejoiced as a family, as one great collective family. It would have pained him immensely to see our sorrow. He would urge us to fight on and to be proud. And when the time comes, we will stand upright again as Jews and we will prevail. One thing that our history has shown is that those who seek to smash our people, defeat our people, wither and fall by the wayside, whereas we will prevail. And the reason is because we live, we choose life, we celebrate life, and we will always do that. Thank you very much.
David, David, you spoke about the need for action now. What would you like to see from the federal and state governments in response to this?
Thank you for the question. So obviously we've been dealing extremely closely with the New South Wales government, the Premier as well as the Police Commissioner. There is currently a significant security step up around Jewish community institutions. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but the first and foremost priority has to be the preservation of Jewish life. Clearly yesterday there was a failure and 16 beautiful human beings lost their lives and dozens remain in hospital today. Once Jewish life is secure, we then need to preserve Jewish way of life. It's utterly unacceptable that Jewish academics and students on university campuses are being harassed and ostracized and victimized for being Jewish. It's utterly unacceptable that Jewish artists are being doxxed and don't have a place within the creative sphere. It's utterly unacceptable that some of our classrooms are being hijacked for political causes. It's unacceptable that the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism has a report dealing with all of these matters, and it's sat on the shelf for all of these months. So those are immediate actions. And then beyond that, we need leadership from civil society to call out and to say that anti-Semitism isn't just a Jewish problem, it's an Australian problem, that they stand with the Jewish community unequivocally. And from our political leaders, we've seen great leadership and moral strength from the Premier, and I think that needs to be mirrored elsewhere on these matters.
By that, do you mean our Prime Minister?
Look, I think the federal government has made a number of missteps on anti-Semitism. I think when an attack such as what we saw yesterday takes place, the paramount and fundamental duty of government is the protection of its citizens. So there's been an immense failure, and an investigation needs to come to grips with how that was allowed to take place. But there's no two ways about it. The federal government was very slow to come to grips with this issue. We haven't seen the leadership at a federal level that we have at a state level. And now, more than ever, is the moment. If we're not going to step up now and deal with this for the crisis that it is, when are we?
If the report from Gillian Siegel was implemented sooner, do you think this attack could have been prevented?
It's too, there's so much that's still unknown about the attack, so it'd be unwise to comment on that.
One of the recommendations, though, was more security at Jewish events. If there was more security at yesterday's event, do you think the attack could have been prevented?
Look, I don't want to comment too much on the security settings for yesterday, but it's obvious that the greater the security presence you have in an event, the more deterrence it has on would-be assailants.
Had the Jewish community hired additional security for that event? Had they hired extra police?
I don't want to go into the security arrangements for that event or any other Jewish communal institution or event.
You've noted the failures a couple of times. What do you see as the greatest failures that led to yesterday?
Look, the investigation which is now underway will reveal it, but the fundamental responsibility and the paramount responsibility of government is to protect its citizens. Clearly yesterday that did not take place. Two individuals who seem reasonably sophisticated were able to set up in close proximity to a Jewish event and to murder Jews in cold blood. Alex, myself and the Jewish community more broadly, we've been warning about the prospects of a mass casualty event for some time. And clearly I think all stakeholders have to reflect on how we've gotten to this moment and how this is allowed to, how yesterday occurred.
Labour MP Josh Burns said that previous attacks on the Jewish community have been minimised. Would you agree with that?
Of course. I mean, we as a community have suffered attempted arson on our synagogues. I mean, one synagogue in Melbourne was burnt to the ground. We very narrowly escaped a mass casualty event when a synagogue in Melbourne earlier this year was set alight with Jews still inside. Despite that, there is a contingent in our community, including leaders, who at every opportunity wish to minimise the Jewish experience, wish to call it a hoax, wish to quibble with anti-Semitism statistics to try to undermine what we're saying. So yes, I think Josh Burns is entirely right. The Jewish community has been through hell over the past 2 years, and notwithstanding all of that, there have still been individuals who've sought to undermine our lived experience. And that has to stop as well, and those individuals who are responsible for that, they need to have a very hard look in the mirror today.
Can I ask you further on that?
The identity of the 10-year-old girl who was killed, Matilda. She attended a Russian school. Just your reaction, this is the youngest victim, a child who was killed in this massacre.
Oh. Look, it just compounds our suffering and our tragedy, and everyone in the community knows someone who perished, who was slaughtered. Everyone knows someone who's now fighting for their lives. Every victim is a world destroyed and it can't be repaired. The loss that we've suffered here is immeasurable. And, you know, through the fire bombings and through the doxing and the boycotts and everything that we've encountered for 2 years now, in some ways it's made us stronger, it's made us more determined and more resilient. But this, you don't emerge stronger from this. Something like this, a slaughterhouse, a place where we would come every single year to mark the first night of Hanukkah with joy and with kids' rides and a petting zoo and face painting, and to know that people in our city who lived 20, 30 minutes from here, looked at that as an opportunity to slaughter, who didn't act out of impulse or opportunism. This was methodical, planned, and designed to slaughter as many people as possible for the crime of being Jewish. This has broken us, but we will rebuild, but more so this has broken this country. For so long we've spoken about what we are and what we aren't as a country, but you are what you repeatedly do. And if over a period of 2 years you burn Jewish targets, you harass the Jewish people among you, you seek to expunge the Jews from public life, and then you slaughter the Jews like animals when you have the opportunity, that is what you become. It's just a question for us now whether we collapse and fracture as a society, or whether we drive this evil from our midst, rip it out root and branch, and banish it once and for all.
Is there anything you can tell us about the other victims?
Oh, look, some of their details haven't been released, and that's really for the families to do, but you know, one of them I knew very well. He was an elderly man in his late 80s. He survived the Holocaust in the Soviet Union. And I would see him at communal events, and he would always make a beeline for me with his beaming face, and he would give me a book or give me a word of advice for the media or government. He was a sharp, deeply engaged individual who lived a rich, rich history, who survived Soviet communism and the purges and World War II and the Nazi killing squads to come to this place and to be felled by the bullet of an assassin. This is a scandal that should shake us all to our core, the fact that we've allowed this to happen. And we have allowed this to happen. This was not an incident in isolation. This is what, as David said, what we've been talking about for 2 years. And we've been talking about it because we know how this story goes. We've seen it as the Jewish people in generation after generation after generation. When anti-Semitism takes root in a society, it's not a passing hatred and idle bigotry. It becomes a quest, a mission, it becomes an obsession, which leads people to do the most inhuman acts. We know this, and we sought to educate the leaders of this country, wider society, because we know where this leads. We know how it rips the country apart. And frankly, we weren't listened to.
Alex, what is the process over the next few days under Jewish traditions? What does that look like in terms of where you go from here the next few days, the next week or so?
Well, under Jewish law, the primary obligation is to treat the bodies with dignity. They'll need to be identified, and you know, some of them were really, the bodies experienced such suffering and distress that it will take a while to restore that dignity. We require burial as soon as possible after the time of death, but obviously the forensic process needs to run its course, after which we will begin the burials according to the Jewish rites and traditions. We will then sit through a period of what we call Shiva, a period of immense, intense mourning, where we sit on low seats and we reflect on our pain and anguish. It's a well-honed method of dealing with the highest trauma. Sadly, the Jewish people have ample experience in this. We don't run from our pain, we confront it, we face it in order to be able to truly process it and then move forward, and we will move forward. We're obligated to do so. Tonight is the second night of Hanukkah, and we again are obligated to mark that occasion. It won't be joyous. There is no joy here, but we will light the candles as we're obligated to do to show the victory of light over darkness. But at the moment, it's hollow to say that, because darkness has prevailed. The worlds of our community have been destroyed, but we have to rebuild them.
Alex, what if the government had links to the Islamic State and had been examined by ASIO 6 years ago? What's your response to that?
Well, look, it's not a surprise, because what happened here, as I said, wasn't isolated. It was the product of an ideology that was allowed to fester in segments of this society, incited by clerics in certain cases, by propagandists, by politicians even in certain cases. And so inevitably you will have individuals who act in the extreme and carry out acts of ultra-violence. There's no surprise here. Our security agencies are made up of incredible men and women who get up every day with the sole mission of protecting Australians. We have absolute faith in them. But there are failures, clearly. As we saw with the fire bombings, they weren't detected or disrupted before the fact. And as we see here, there was no ability to identify these individuals, to see that they were on the cusp of mass terror, and the consequence is body bags by the sand.
You mentioned anti-Semitism festering in society in general. How have Australians let down their Jewish community members, and how can Australians step up to help their community?
In many ways, our fellow Australians have bolstered us. They've stood shoulder to shoulder with us through quiet words and deeds. And so many, I think, want to support us but don't know how to. And ultimately, as David said, when you talk about questions of physical security, national security, the individual is limited in what they can do. We look to government to do the things that we cannot do for ourselves, and paramount among that is protecting life. And this is a failure, a colossal failure. I don't pin this on the Australian people, but what I ask the Australian people to do is to look at what we have become. Look what has been allowed to happen to this country, the greatest country on earth, where we stand here and gather at a scene of carnage at Bondi Beach, where people gathered, families gathered to mark a religious day. We have to change course, and it begins with individual responsibility. If governments won't take responsibility, the individuals have to. We have to ensure that anti-Semitism ceases to be an acceptable, plausible form of intolerance. It is not. It is the worst gutter form of hatred and leads to the greatest of carnage. We've seen that throughout history and has led to this once more.
I might take one more question.
What would you say to people at home right now who are sad, scared, confused? If they're watching, what would you say to them?
I would say I understand your feelings completely, and as a community leader and as a father, I feel the same thing. You know, as I said, through the fire bombings and everything that transpired, we carried on with our heads held high. We displayed our Judaism with great pride alongside our Australian identities. But last night I was having conversations with my 12-year-old daughter who was petrified. And I was not going to deceive her or lie to her, and I don't deceive the community. There is something to be feared here. When we can't go to the beach and mark Hanukkah in public as we have for 30 years without being mowed down like animals, there is something to be feared. And it is the obligation of society to repair this harm that has been done. Part of it can't be undone and repaired. Lives have been destroyed, but in time we need to prevail and we need to rebuild Jewish life in this country. If Jewish life is allowed to wither, it is a victory for the savages that carried out this slaughter. We will not let that happen.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that guy speaking there was Alex Rivchin. He's part of the Jewish community in Sydney. He's a pretty famous Australian author, advocate, media commentator. Some really stark words there, including the detail, which I'll discuss with my panel in a second, the detail of a man who survived the Holocaust in his 80s, who has been shot on Bondi Beach during that attack, but he's in a bad way in hospital, let's just put it like that. He fled Nazi killing squads, Alex was saying, and he was shot by the Islamists on Bondi Beach. Incredible. You flee the Holocaust, you survive the Holocaust, you find safety in Australia, and yet they still get you. Let's get the take now with the host of the brilliant Spot On with Link Lauren show, and former senior advisor to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Link Lauren himself. Link, thank you for your patience. Great to see you. I don't know what to say, really. I mean, it's just another one which should be so shocking, so... It is tragic, but it continues. It's on and on and on, and I don't know where we go from here, Link.
Well, it's great to be with you, Ben. I wish we had better news. When I saw the news coming out of Australia, this horrific terrorist attack, this horrific shooting during the holidays, I was horrified, but I was not shocked, right? This is just a continuation of the radical Islamic extremism we have seen in the West. We've seen it here in the United States. We've seen it in the UK. Now we're seeing it in Australia, right? A few weeks ago here in Washington, D.C., we saw 2 National Guardsmen get shot in cold blood in broad daylight by an Afghan national, right? When you import people who live under Sharia law, who don't respect your customs and norms, these things are going to happen. You need more vetting, and you need more of an honest conversation about this mixing of cultures, especially when the cultures don't want to assimilate and they want to destroy you.
Yeah, we had it ourselves in Manchester. We had a guy, Link, as you know, a guy called Jihad. That was his damn name, Jihad, slaughtering Jews in the street. There was another incident in, I think it was Virginia, maybe a few weeks before the National Guard were shot by that Afghan guy Biden imported. He was an Afghan interpreter. He was pulled over by the side of the road. He just suddenly started shooting at the police. So many incidents, so many. What is the solution then, Link? Is it something akin to what President Trump is doing here and talking about mass deportations, remigration to the likes of Australia, the UK? Do we need to follow suit?
Well, I'm so happy that President Trump has stopped migration from third world countries. Until we get this under control, we can't keep importing people. Even here in Minnesota, right, we've got this multi-billion-dollar fraud scheme that's been perpetrated by these Somalians, right, overseen by Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, but by these Somalians who are allegedly funding money back to terrorist organizations, right? So when you import people from the third world who don't respect your customs and norms, they are going to try to destroy you. It doesn't mean I'm lumping everybody in who's Muslim together, right? We all have people we know who are Muslim who are great, fine individuals, right? I'm not lumping everybody in, but we have to put a pause on things until we get it under control.
Yeah, and of course it was Joe Biden who gave or unfroze $16 billion worth of cash to Iran some years ago. Obama did something like $1.5 billion, his stupid bungled deal. Maybe Joel Rubin in a second can clarify on that. But are you concerned about Iran in all of this? Because Israeli intelligence suspecting Tehran is somehow linked to Bondi. We've had our own problems with Iran in the UK as well. What's your thoughts on Iran?
Well, this is such a fresh tragedy, right? This is about 24 hours ago. Also, we're looking at Brown University. We have no answers about Brown University, and there are over 800 cameras on Brown's campus, right? So I have questions about everything. I'm going to leave it to the authorities and the people who have that expertise. But we should be looking at every situation. We should be looking at who we're importing, who's coming in, who are these folks coming into our countries that don't respect our customs and norms and don't want to assimilate. And the last thing I'll say on it, Ben, we have these gun-free zones, right? There are a lot of folks here in the United States who want to take guns away. They want to eradicate the Second Amendment. We had a gun-free zone at Brown University, right? There weren't supposed to be guns on that beach in Australia. But when bad people want to do bad things and are determined, they're certainly going to have guns, which is why I tell young women and people across the country, you have to arm yourself and take care of yourself, because these folks in blue cities are not going to step in and help you, especially when you have liberal policies in other countries as well.
Yeah, and I've said before, Link, in America, certainly I'm absolutely pro-gun, because I think the stats is something like 6 guns to every American. If everybody else has got guns, I'm damn well going to have a gun as well. Right. In the UK, it's different, because in America, the horse is bolted, the guns are on the streets. In the UK, we don't have guns, really, so it's a different conversation. But, yeah, I mean, Australia, they gave up their guns as well, just like the Brits did. So definitely a conversation to be had. Link, thanks for your company, mate. Appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up soon in happier times. Cheers, Link. That was Link Lauren, the former senior advisor to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and host of the very, very good Spot On with Link Lauren show. I advise you all check it out. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now off the back of that the press conference with the Jewish community leaders. Joel Rubin's here, Victoria Churchill as well. Victoria, that guy speaking, Alex, what's his name, Joel? Reichvin. Yeah, he was very eloquent. He was giving some detail about how the 80-year-old who had been shot on Bondi Beach, he escaped and survived the Holocaust. And then he goes to Australia and he's gunned down again by some anti-Semitic Islamists.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes to show that no matter where you are in the world, Jews are being targeted. I think there was another gentleman that I saw post on X who had survived the October 7th attack and had moved to Australia since then, and he was actually shot. It looked, at least from the clip that I saw, the picture floating around on X, that he had actually been shot in the head, or at least was bleeding somewhere on his face. So, you know, of course, the Holocaust within a span of somebody's very long lifetime, but this gentleman seemed to be at least a little bit younger than 80. I think he was about 50 years old or so. And, you know, he's another one that has had to survive multiple attacks on Jewish individuals. And, you know, I also want to point out something that Link, I think, was getting at, is that there is quite a difference between regular Muslims and radical Islamic terrorists. Actually, the man who disarmed this gunman on Bondi Beach, he himself was a Muslim.
I don't know. I mean, that guy's a hero. I don't think it's been confirmed he was a Muslim. There's some reports that he was maybe a Christian from Lebanon. He's Lebanese Christian initially. So I don't know. But I'd say, granted, your point is you shouldn't tell them
at least our reporting on the Daily Mail, it was top of our Daily Mail story for most of the day today.
Oh, right.
He was Muslim, father of 2, fruit salesman is who this guy was. Yeah.
Joel, I saw you, maybe it was just the lights in here, I saw you getting quite teary listening to that press conference.
Well, I appreciate your sensitivity to this, Ben. It is a horrible day right now for Jews around the world. I'm getting emails constantly in all my group chats, friends, you name it. We're under duress. Jews around the world are under duress. There are attacks in Amsterdam now at a Hanukkah event. We have synagogues where whenever we go to synagogue, We have to go through a metal detector now. Here in the United States, we have a mayor coming into New York who says he wants to support Jewish safety by increasing spending on synagogue security, but doesn't want to address the root causes of the anger and hatred towards Jewish New Yorkers by denouncing the term globalized intifada. So Jews right now are deeply distressed. I think Alex at that press conference was brilliant in explaining it and saying clearly our leaders are failing us. We need partnerships. One thing I have to add, and I'll say this quite bluntly, our allies in the Jewish community, we feel that they abandoned us after October 7th, that there was a split in the Jewish community here in the United States from the allies that we have worked with for a number of years in civil rights, and it's still not repaired. So now we've got a problem.
Who are those people? Non-Jews who were previously allied to Israel?
In particular, in efforts to promote civil rights here domestically in the United States, diverse coalitions, and in the Democratic Party in particular, because I'll speak with my lane. The Jewish community, Jewish members of the Democratic Party who support Israel have been ostracized inside the Democratic Party because we continue to support peace and Israel and Middle East peace and even a Palestinian state, but we call for a state of Israel and we've been ostracized.
Wow. Joel, maybe I'm just being a bit too harsh, but there was a question from a reporter in that press conference which to me seemed totally inane. It was, I mean, in fact, it was dumb, it was stupid. They said, what's the response here tonight, Alex? Is it, do we need to put, more security around synagogues? I mean, that's not going to change the ideology of thousands of people around the world, is it? Putting more, security screenings at synagogues. That is worse than a sticking plaster.
Well, it's just ghettoized us even more, right? Like put us behind barriers and basically we have to just hide in our homes. No, that's not how it's going to be. Not in America, not in Australia, not in Europe. Jews, we are not going to hide behind barriers, but we need our security services, our intelligence community, our local police, our leaders to proactively get out there and clamp down on the rhetoric and identify potential threats. And you do that by engaging. I just don't think they knew it was coming because they weren't engaging. And that's the lesson learned from here is they didn't know what was happening inside the community. Apparently they knew about this guy, and we'll find out more. But how could they, if they knew about this guy and they have anti-gun laws, how could he have had such weaponry?
Yeah, six
they need
guns.
To get hands-on and be proactive. You can't wait till after the bodies are being recovered.
Such a great point. Paul Cox is down the line from London, GB News contributor and superstar. Hello, Paul. Good morning. It's a great point from Joel there, talking about this guy who had access, I think it was the son, and well, the father as well, father and son, pretty much the same entity. They had access to 6 guns, despite the son reportedly being investigated by the Aussie spooks some years ago for potential links to ISIS. You'd have to think, oh, well, how the hell does either the son or even the dad have access to guns with that in mind?
Terrible day.
Well, we can't hear you, Paul. Is that just my... Oh, there we go. Got you.
Okay.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just saying, good evening, Ben. Good evening, Victoria. Good evening, Joel. Joel, we've not worked together before. My job is normally to lighten things up. I won't be doing that, I'm afraid.
Sorry.
No, and I'm sorry for you as well. Look, these people had access to weaponry because they wanted to cause harm. They made a pact with one another. I made no bones on an earlier show that I'm pleased the father has passed away, and I think justice would be for the son to pass away too. But make no bones about it, these people are not alone. They're 2 people. They're saying they're not looking for any other offenders. But of course they're not, because in this particular instance they're not. But these will be part of a cohort of people, 10 deep, 100 deep, 1,000 deep, of extremist Muslims that want to cause harm to Jewish people and Western culture. And they are all over the world. It's always the same people. It's always the same motive. It's always the same outcome, and it's just a different location. Now, at some point, somebody politically is going to have to discriminate our way to safety, and by which I mean that we know who's causing this, and we've been so terrified to discriminate by calling it out, saying what it is and doing something about it, that we are just going to end up with 10-year-old girls being killed, rabbis being killed, 88-year-old Holocaust survivors being killed. And that's without mentioning any of the atrocities that have happened elsewhere in our good country as well, Ben. Tonight I am at a loss for words, and whatever we've done before has not been good enough, and we have to do something different.
Yeah, well said, Paul. Hang tight, will you? We're going to go live now to Bondi Beach with Sky News Australia host Danica Di Giorgio. Danica, nice to see you. Sorry it's under these circumstances. First of all, my love, my thoughts with you guys down under. Goodness me, just tell us what's going on there now. What's the mood like? And also tell me, Danica, about your morning when you first found out about what was happening on the beach, and just explain your day to the viewers here in Britain, will you?
Well, Ben, I was actually on air when this all unfolded. We were walking into the studio last night just before 7 p.m. when we got word that there had been a shooting at Bondi Beach. Now, just to put it into context for your viewers, Bondi is a happy place. It's a peaceful place. It was a hot summer night here in Sydney. So when we got that message, we thought, no, that can't possibly be right. Within about 10 minutes, the confirmation came that there had been a mass shooting and that there were mass casualties. And unfortunately, the worst fears were realised pretty soon. And we now know that 15 people have died. 15 people were shot dead in this horrific targeted attack against the Jewish community. I've been at Bondi for the last few hours, and you can probably see behind me there is a memorial that has been set up, a steady stream of people bringing flowers throughout the day. And you know, it's hard to describe. This is meant to be a happy place. Bondi is a happy place. It is well known. I'm sure your viewers over in the UK, when you think of Australia, Bondi is one of the main places that you think of. This is not Bondi today. You can also see the Israel flag and the Australian flag on display. What we do know that there was about 1,000 people gathered last night on the beach for this Hanukkah event when these two men, a father and son, aged 50 and 24, opened fire. The vision is chilling. You cannot describe it. They were opening fire. It was a targeted attack on Hanukkah. And soon, body bags lined the beach. The scene was absolutely horrendous. We're still trying to find a motive. Police have been providing updates throughout the day. But at this stage, they're investigating whether an ISIS flag was on the car that they were driving. And there have been some reports that they were obsessed with Islamic fundamentalism. But that's all we know at this stage. In terms of the victims, one of the 15 is a 10-year-old girl. A 10-year-old girl. Her name is Matilda. It's very hard to put into words, Ben, the feeling here today of sorrow. And I've been speaking to people, and many have looked into the camera and said, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, blood is on your hands. Because here in Bondi, it's a very big Jewish community, and they've been warning for some time. They've said that what is it going to take for Australia to wake up? Well, here we are with one of the biggest mass shootings in Australia. This is what it's taken, and it is absolutely heartbreaking.
Danica, I'm really sorry you guys are going through this. It seems like every Western nation has to go through this a couple of times every couple of years, unfortunately, because that's the way our political leaders have led us into the gutter. And Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel wrote to your Prime Minister in August saying, sort your anti-Semitism out, otherwise it's going to bite you in the arse. And that's what's happened. Danica, normally I love speaking to you. It's so much fun when we talk about other stuff, but unfortunately it's under these circumstances. So I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. Let's go live now to Bondi, where there's a press conference being held by the authorities. Let's take a listen.
Immediate emergency mental health support or counselling. They're working on setting up a static operation on site in Bondi if you need that help and support, as no doubt the community will. Having spoken to Jewish community leaders today, they're reeling and in crisis, and obviously many of them are incredibly distressed at what they've seen. The latest information is 15 innocent people are dead. One of the perpetrators is dead. 16 in total. 38 people remain in New South Wales hospitals being treated. And that's all I'll say right now. I'll hand over to the Police Minister.
Thanks so much, Premier. As the Premier just said, the Premier's councillors are out on site, and I've just come back from Bondi, and I can honestly say how valuable their contribution is, stopping not only officers but just generally people who are out there, and they really are having a big impact. So important that we get that message out. If you need to speak to someone, we do actually have that operation out there. We've got experts out there wanting to help. Also went out to see the police and to thank the police out there. We have police from commands right across metropolitan Sydney out and Bondi at the moment, around that area. And again, you know, like only too often, the police got a phone call this morning who were on today at 4:15 and were directed to go straight out there, and not a hesitation. No hesitation whatsoever. The Blue family is really all behind each other. They're behind the community, and they are only too happy to be of assistance in keeping our community safe. I spoke with some Jewish leaders out there. They were so thankful of the police and the work that they've been doing. As we well know, the relationship between the Jewish community and the New South Wales Police is strong, and they have been working hand in glove with CSG and our Jewish leaders for a couple of years now, given the circumstances that we have been in that community. I also just wanted to advise you that last night the Premier and I were over at Bondi. We went to the police station, and there were at least 50, 60 police officers there. Most of them weren't on duty. They just heard the event, put their uniform on, got in their car and drove to Bondi Police Station because they knew they'd be needed. We had them not just from their pack, their locals, as far as Newcastle, Sutherland, Western Sydney, you name it. The police here in New South Wales do a great job, and they are here to support each other, they are here to support our community, and we're very thankful for that.
We're all happy to take questions.
Commissioner, the ABC has reported that the younger shooter was under investigation by ASIO 6 years ago for connections to a Sydney-based Islamic State terror group. Were any red flags raised within the police about his father's gun licence with 6 registered serious firearms, given they have known connections to Islamic State?
I certainly can't talk about what information the Commonwealth may have had, but certainly in terms of a firearms licence, the Firearms Registry conduct a thorough examination of all applications to ensure a person is fit and proper to hold a firearms licence.
Does that include associations with their family members?
It absolutely can, depending on the nature of the association, depending on the nature of the intelligence that's there. They have to weigh up all of those things in accordance with the Firearms Act.
Premier, how can gun law be changed? Premier, how can we change the gun law so a man in suburbia doesn't have 6 licensed firearms? He's not a farmer after all.
Yeah, well, look, we're looking at that as we speak. I think it's time that we have a change to the law in relation to the firearms legislation in New South Wales, but I'm not ready to announce it today. We want to make sure that prospective reform and change in New South Wales has a lasting impact, but it's not the last time I'll be mentioning it, and you can expect action soon.
Why was he granted a firearm licence?
I can't answer that question.
Do we have that information?
Because he met the eligibility criteria for a firearms licence. So the firearms licence was to be for a recreational hunting licence. There are 2 types of hunting licence, the ability to hunt on a property or also as part of a hunting club, so a gun club. He was a member of a gun club and was entitled, by nature of the Firearms Act, to have a firearms licence issued. Sorry, just one at a time, please. Pardon?
Do we know which gun?
I don't have those details with me at the moment.
What category of gun licence did he hold? I understand the different categories allow you to register different types of firearms.
He had a Category AB licence, which entitled him to have the long arms that he had as registered firearms.
Commissioner, does the New South Wales Firearms Registry talk to federal authorities? Like, would they have known what ASIO knew about his...
Depending on the nature of it, and as I said this morning, that's very much under investigation at the moment. We want to understand whether the person was, and certainly by criteria, he was eligible to hold a firearms licence. We do take into account all intelligence that's available, so yes, we certainly do that.
Premier, does the New South Wales Police have any discussion with ASIO regarding their investigations into the 24-year-old individual?
We work very closely with all Commonwealth agencies. As I said, I'm not going to go into what information ASIO may have held. We will work closely with the Commonwealth.
Premier, do you have concerns that this might be a case of federal agencies not talking to New South Wales Police, and are you going to raise that concern this afternoon?
Look, I mean, I think it's reasonable in the circumstances to allow a full investigation and an inquiry to take place. There's a sequence here that's important. Firstly, community safety. Secondly, the investigation. There's an offender in custody. That prosecution is hugely important in terms of justice for the victims. And of course, a comprehensive investigation as to what went wrong. What could we do better? Is there better lines of communication? I'm not in a position now to criticise it, and I think it wouldn't be the right thing to do within 24 hours of this shocking, violent attack to be pronouncing failures here without the aid of an independent investigation. What I can promise is that's exactly what we will provide here in New South Wales. It's important that we get all the information on the table, and I want to make it clear we will act on those recommendations.
You were the Hunter event last night. Is it true that private security there weren't allowed to hold firearms? And if so, can you explain why?
I don't know if that is the case. Happy to take that away and come back to you. They would have to be appropriately licensed to have those firearms. Sorry?
Was it a user-paid event? Can you tell us maybe how many police, or what was the police presence in the area at the time of the event, and how seriously did police take any, I guess, potential security concern at the event?
Police always take safety personally. We're always mindful of community safety. There were active taskings for the local police area commander to be down there. In fact, the police area commander had been down there through the location. So it's one of those ones, we work closely with the security group, the Jewish security group, CSG, and then make sure that we have a policing presence that is there. I think what I can say, and the reassurance I can give the community, is the prompt response by police indicates very clearly that police take security safe.
Can you just give us a timetable of when the first police shots were fired, when how long did it go on for, and when were the shooters taken out?
No, I can't give you that right at the moment. That's obviously part of the investigation. What I have said is that there were police at the scene at the time. Police responded promptly. I think we have seen very clearly on footage the bravery of officers and members of the public who took very prompt action to resolve this matter.
How many police were specifically stationed in the Huntington by the C event?
As I said, it was taskings, so police from the police area command and other police that we have within the metropolitan area will move around that event. So it's an active tasking to be around the event.
Well, on that point, just trying to before what the Treasurer is saying.
How many officers would have been stationed at that event?
I don't have the exact number. As I said, they were tasking, so officers are continually going through that location. There were certainly officers there at the time when the incident occurred and responded very promptly.
Should have been more there, given the climate of anti-Semitism at the moment.
Look, I think in terms of the risk assessment, we certainly work closely with the Jewish community. I've made it really clear that there was no specific intelligence in relation to the incident itself. We responded very promptly.
Commissioner, are you able to confirm that a black Shahada flag was found either laid out on the bonnet of the car or inside the car? That's what the obviously been told by other police sources.
Yeah, that's very much part of the investigation. At this stage, I'm not prepared to confirm any of that. Further information will be provided. I think I've also made it quite clear with a person who is currently in hospital at the moment who may well face criminal charges. It's important that I don't prejudice any prosecution.
How would you describe the police response, Commissioner? How would you describe the act of bravery of officers?
I think that's been really clear. I think anyone who has seen the footage will have seen police going forward to take positive action. It would have been an incredibly chaotic and terrifying scene, even for well-trained police officers. The fact that two persons had long arms and were indiscriminately firing them says that the act of bravery about going forward is something we should all celebrate. The police went forward, took very positive action, resolved the matter again with some outstanding bravery by members of the public.
Who's in charge of the investigation and how will it work and where will it be based out of?
There's several investigations underway at the moment. I spoke this morning. The Joint Counter-Terrorism investigation will be led by our Counter-Terrorism Command with our Commonwealth agencies. At the same time, there is a critical incident investigation because we know that police fired a number of shots which resulted in the death of a person and also the injury to a second offender. So there are a range of investigations underway at the moment.
Commissioner, what's Freidenberg saying that the police failed the Jewish community knowing it was the first day of Hanukkah?
Look, I respect a person having an opinion, but I've been really clear. Our police responded promptly. Our police respond very promptly. We work closely with the Jewish community. We are very attuned with providing support to the Jewish community.
Commissioner, what can you tell us about
and not private security or anyone else involved?
What I can say to you is that's currently part of the investigation. Obviously, that's something that will come through pathologist investigation, but also forensics and ballistics investigation. That is part of an active investigation.
Without divulging the ideologies or any symbols of the scene, was the flag recovered? What evidence was taken away from the scene linked to those gunmen?
Last night, I declared a terrorist incident at 9:36 p.m. because I was satisfied, based on the circumstances, based on what was located at the scene, based on the fact that it was the first day of Hanukkah and what appeared to be a deliberate shooting towards members of the Jewish community, that it was a terrorist act. I'm not going to go into individual pieces of evidence. They are subject to the investigation. I want to make sure that we do a very thorough and transparent investigation, which is what our police are doing at the moment.
Commissioner, were the gunmen Australian citizens? And if not, can you tell us how long they've been in Australia for?
I'm not prepared to comment on that at the moment. That's all part of the
Is
investigation.
there anything more you know about the two shooters that you can divulge to us?
I divulged this morning that they are both a father and a son. They have obviously a connection for quite a period of time within Australia. The father has held a firearms licence since 2015. We are very much working through the background of both persons. At this stage, we know very little about them.
Has anything come up on social media?
Oh, there's a lot of things on social media at the moment.
Social media potential
No, that's part of the investigation. So you can imagine we have significant evidence that we're going through at the moment, whether it's CCTV, whether it's social media. We stood up Operation Shelter at the moment. They will actually scrape through social media as well as the investigators. We're keen to find out any evidence that may be available. If people do have information or evidence, we ask that they contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. We would like every bit of evidence.
Commissioner, in April of this year, your predecessor said that the relationship and information sharing between the Australian Federal Police and the New South Wales Police on counter-terrorism needed to be reviewed and improved. Since that time, how has that relationship been improved, reviewed and improved?
I think both organisations work very closely together and very well. It is too premature in relation to this specific incident to talk about the information sharing. The Australian Federal Police and the New South Wales Police obviously work within joint counter-terrorism arrangements. We are committed as both agencies, and I've spoken to the Federal Police Commissioner, to make sure we work closely. Together, we keep the community safer, so I'm very confident that both agencies are working together.
Premier, we've got this incident yesterday where the shooter had a gun licence. We've had John Edwards, Jack Elkerson, a neo-Nazi, until recently had a gun licence. Clearly, New South Wales has a checkered recent history with people with gun licences committing criminal acts. Doesn't our gun registry laws need to change? What can you do now to ensure this doesn't happen again?
I mean, the short answer is yes. They need to change and they can change. It does require legislation, and it means introducing a bill to Parliament to, to be really blunt, make it more difficult to get these horrifying weapons that have no practical use in our community. If you're not a farmer, if you're not involved in agriculture, why do you need these massive weapons that put the public in danger and make life dangerous and difficult for New South Wales Police? So I understand, of course I understand, the genuine desire to have information about how the law will change. We're less than 24 hours into this horrifying crime. I want to make sure that legislation and reform that we bring to Parliament makes a big difference, but that's exactly my intention, and my colleagues feel exactly the same way.
Premier, what about an audit of current firearm licence holders to determine whether the people who currently have a licence still need one, considering that we had a man in suburban with 6 firearms?
Yeah, I mean, that has been flagged by New South Wales Police as an issue, because the granting of a firearms licence in perpetuity is clearly not fit for purpose when you consider that someone might have committed an offence, put themselves in a situation where they're considered by police vulnerable to a criminal act. We need to make sure the firearms legislation in New South Wales is fit for purpose. That does mean restricting firearms for the general public, for the people of New South Wales, but not everybody needs these weapons of mass destruction. You don't need them on New South Wales streets. So we will be looking at change. But I understand you want details. That's completely understandable. You're going to have to give me some time to get the legislation drafted so that we can do it in an appropriate way, in a way that will make a difference.
Will you consider recalling Parliament to make those changes? But, Premier, can I ask, will the Opera House be lit up this week to honour the victims?
We're working with the Jewish community about appropriate reflections and memorials, and we'll have more to say about that soon.
Is that an appropriate memorial?
It may well be, but I'm not ready to announce it at the moment.
Will the government consider changes for New Year's Eve celebrations and consider increased security given the threats that are circulating online about potential additional violent events, and Commissioner, is police aware of those threats being made online?
Look, of course that's a massive issue. New South Wales Police, the government, have turned our minds to those big celebrations, those iconic days in Sydney, but at the moment our immediate focus is on this investigation and keeping the community of Bondi, Dover Heights safe.
Premier, are you aware, or Commissioner, any of you aware about a social media post circulating about a violent rally in Cronulla on the 27th of December?
Well, I'll answer and then throw to Mal. I mean, I'll just say that will be met with the full force of the law. There will be no tolerance for any kind of retribution or some kind of vindictive counter assault on anyone in our community. We are not going to allow ever a situation where we descend into some kind of lawlessness, and if you are considering participating in something like that, you can expect a massive, overwhelming police response. It will not be tolerated. We need to appeal for calm. We need to be in a situation where we're saying to the people of New South Wales, this is a horrible event. You have to allow the communities in New South Wales to heal, to have some moment of reflection where they can mourn the loss of their loved ones. The last thing we need is a descent into vindictive violence, and we won't tolerate it in New South Wales. Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Premier. I'm actually aware of that social media post. One of the key roles of Operation Shelter is to make sure that we scrape intelligence, to make sure that we plan appropriate responses. So this will be an ongoing process. We will be looking for matters that we need to plan a police response about. Our focus is clear: to keep the community safe. If people think that they're going to engage in violence, they're wrong. The police will be there, the police will take appropriate action, and I want to make that really clear. Calm is what is required at the moment. Retribution is inappropriate. The community is in grief, the community is mourning. We need calm.
Thank you very much, everyone. Let's go.
About any of the other family members?
Okay, that was a live press conference in Sydney from New South Wales Police. Joel Rubin's here, Victoria Churchill as well. The first take I have of that, Joel, is I think they said they're introducing or plan to introduce new legislation to tighten up gun laws.
Yeah,
so great. I mean, you don't have really guns anyway, but let's just make it worse.
Look, I mean, what's happening here in Australia is that they're sort of hardening the Jewish community, securitizing the impact of anti-Semitism, rather than dealing with the root causes, rather than getting out into the community, rather than even hear a comment of no retribution. What retribution? What's he talking about?
Yeah.
The Jewish community is not going to come out and riot against others. It never has. And that's the thing that has to be stated. And we need to see the Australian government speak up aggressively and proactively in support of the Jewish community, not just putting them behind barriers.
Victoria, what did you take from that? I mean, I'm just flabbergasted, actually, that the first thing the authorities do is say, yeah, we're going to plan to introduce legislation to tighten up gun laws, when you've got some of the toughest gun laws anyway. And also, the fact the father, Victoria, had a gun licence for hunting since 2015. And yet, at the same time, I believe the son was being investigated by the Aussie spooks for possible links to ISIS. So, again, the same question from earlier. How is that allowed to happen?
Well, I think you took the words right out of my mouth there, Ben. I think this incident, as well as the incident at Brown yesterday, which of course happened when you were live on air, this goes to show that restrictive gun policies and gun-free zones that are created by those policies create the most dangerous circumstances, because nobody is expecting to be a victim of firearms violence, because they think that as long as these laws are in place, nothing bad will happen, and that's exactly where the worst of these incidents happen. And then another just quick thought. It seemed to me like the police were saying that they were in tune with the needs of the Jewish community, which I think goes contrary a little bit to what Jewish community leaders were saying themselves in the earlier press conference, where we said that they had actually been speaking out against threats to their own community, and those threats had kind of gone by the wayside.
Paul, maybe we can, you are, as you said earlier, used to normally instilling some joy on this programme. The sole shining light from all this mess is the guy who tackled the terrorist. I think his name was Ahmed, who may or may not be a Muslim. I think Victoria said he was. Doesn't really matter, to be honest. There's a GoFundMe that's been set up for him. $300,000 has been raised so far. He was in surgery earlier. He was shot in the arm, I think, and somewhere else. Not too serious, but what a guy. And one thing I took from his video as well, the clip, is that he's received a bit of criticism, Paul, a bit of flack from people online for not shooting, for not killing the terrorist. I think it was because the gun was a bolt-action gun, and after every shot you have to... Here's the clip on screen now. This is in the aftermath of him tackling him. So the terrorist takes a shot, and normally you have to pull the bolt back to cock it before taking another shot. I think this guy possibly didn't kill the terrorist because he isn't used to guns and, quite frankly, didn't know. There's the shot, tackles him. So if he wants to take another shot here, he has to pull the bolt back to cock it. I don't think this guy here, Ahmed, the hero, knew that. It may be the case that he tried pulling the trigger and nothing happened. But anyway, 300 grand raised, Paul, for this guy. What's your take on him?
He should be awarded the highest accolades that Australia can offer him. No doubt, that he saved countless lives. You know what? I don't know if he would have killed him anyway. I don't know if he tried to pull the trigger. I tweeted about this earlier.
Would you have killed him, Paul?
Sorry? Would I have killed him?
Would you have pulled that trigger?
No, I don't think I would. I've never felt that I wanted to. However, I say I don't think I would. I'm sat here in a TV studio observing this, commentating on this. Had that been a situation where my family were involved, I might have beaten him over the head with the gun if I couldn't have worked it. So I don't know. It's an incredibly emotional situation. I thought he acted heroically. He could have easily been the very next victim there. Whether he wanted to kill him is only a matter of his mind and conscience. I'm glad he didn't, Ben. I'm glad he didn't. I think it would have opened up a whole conversation that would have muddied these waters and made it difficult. I hate to say this, but the left, what I call them the watermelon gang, they've all co-opted this, saying, well, look, this was a Muslim guy. That means this is some simultaneous equation where you've got a Muslim on one hand who's killed 16 people. Oh, and you've got a Muslim on the other hand who has tackled him. Oh, that's evened it all out. What are we worried about? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether he's a Muslim or not. Fair play to him. He's a hero. It doesn't take anything away from what happened today, though, Ben.
Yeah, it was great. No, of course. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it goes without saying. I think I would have killed him, and I wouldn't have lost any sleep, actually. Would you have killed him, yes or no, Joel?
Well, I'm a non-violent guy, but I think I would have gone after him there, probably.
Victoria, would you have pulled the trigger?
I think I would have.
Yeah, I would have, and I wouldn't have lost any sleep about it. I know everyone's different. I'm not trying to be macho, but I just would have, and I probably, would have enjoyed it, actually. Right, let's get the take of Jonathan Haranoff, the international spokesperson for Israel at the United Nations. Jonathan, good evening. Thanks for your company. First of all, did I get your surname correct?
You did. Good evening. Great to be with you again, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, great to see you. Thank you for your company again. Look, really sorry to, again, I sound like a broken record year after year. Another one, Jonathan. How are you feeling? What should the response be now from Israel?
It's devastating. shocking, unfortunately not surprising turn of events. The question is not really what Israel should be doing, it's what the Australian government should be doing in order to protect its people, and not to issue, the same statements, press conferences, expressions of comfort, which of course go some way, but they don't actually solve the root cause of the issue. And I know on the panel before you were talking about it, there is certainly a misalignment between things that the Australian authorities say and how they think the Jewish people in Australia feel, and how the Jewish people in Australia actually feel. I had the opportunity to spend some time in Bondi Beach in April with the Jewish community there, and they were telling me even then just how concerned they were about their safety. And despite all of the risks and the wave after wave of anti-Semitic attack, arson, burning down of synagogues, attacks on kosher bakeries and restaurants, they were extraordinarily resilient. And unfortunately today we saw a vile anti-Semitism rearing its ugly head. And this is a disturbing trend that we're actually seeing, where Jewish holidays, festivals, are turning into these sort of hunting grounds for Jewish life. We saw it on October the 7th, of course, Simchat Torah in Israel. We saw it at Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester, Yom Kippur, and today Bondi Beach, Sydney, first day of Hanukkah. And if we're talking about slivers of hope, I'm in New York and I just got back from a enormous public Hanukkah menorah lighting, where there were droves and droves of people, and I'm assuming that probably triple the number of people who would have attended had, unfortunately, today's events not occurred. But you do really see a response of resilience and defiance, and the fact that, Jewish people will bring lights into these dark times, and we will not be cowards, and that's the message.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you had that experience in New York, Jonathan, because last time I was in New York in October, I was surrounded by Hamas flags and Hezbollah flags. So let's hope Mamdani has some influence there to change things, maybe not. Jonathan, you've got about a minute left. Sorry to push you, but Benjamin Netanyahu wrote to Albanese, the Aussie PM, in August saying, sort your anti-Semitism out, otherwise something serious is going to happen. Something serious has happened. He didn't sort it out. What is Israel's response? I asked initially because I was really relating to this kind of letter from your Prime Minister. What should happen?
I mean, it's abundantly clear that anti-Semitism is this global cancer, and it spreads even more so when leaders stay silent and don't take action. Israel's had, of course, an anti-Semitism problem. The United States had a problem. The UK has a problem. Australia has a massive problem. And what Israel will continue to do is to hold its counterparts across government, its allies, to account when they're falling short. And that's what we'll continue to do, and that's what the letter that the Prime Minister sent to the Australian Prime Minister said, that they've fallen short in protecting their Australian Jewish community, and they should be doing much more.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Love to you and your friends, family and colleagues. That's Jonathan Howanoff, international spokesperson for Israel at the UN. Joel, thanks for tonight. Appreciate it. I know it's been a bit of an evening for you.
I'm grateful.
Being a Jewish guy. Victoria, thank you very much for your contributions, and of course you viewers at home as well. Been a bit of a weekend, hasn't it, with the Brown University shootings, this situation on Bondi Beach as well, but we start the week afresh next week. Have a good week, good night and sweet dreams.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. As we transition into this new week, we are continuing to see some quite heavy rainfall around at times, and there are amber rain warnings in force today due to this trailing frontal system that's very slow moving and is providing a lot of rainfall for the same locations repeatedly throughout the day. So those amber rain warnings for parts of southern Wales, but also still in time for Cumbria, where we may just see that rain skirt its way back up northwards a little later on in the day. Certainly do take care if you're travelling across any of these regions. There are various yellow rain warnings in force across other parts of northern England, Wales and southwestern England as well. Generally though, it's a brighter and drier day for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. There are a few showers just to watch out for here in the very far northwest, but overall much drier and some hazy sunshine managing to poke its way through. some fresher air filtering in through here. So top temperatures today across these two nations, mostly around 7 to 8 degrees Celsius. However, to the southeast of this rain band, we've got some southerly winds moving in, and so it is, whilst cloudier, actually milder, and those temperatures of around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius. Our rain band will slowly push its way southeastwards as we head throughout the night, those rain warnings continuing until the early hours of Tuesday morning. Underneath here, again, underneath that cloud, it's going to hold those temperatures up around 8-9 degrees Celsius, but something much chillier for northwestern regions, maybe even some patchy frost to start off the day on Tuesday morning. I wouldn't take the graphics too literally with this rain on Tuesday. There is some uncertainty in regards to how quickly it could break up and eventually clear off the far southeast, so we may still see some outbreaks of rain lingering. But elsewhere, there'll be some sunny spells developing away from those scattered showers that are still going to push their way into the far northwest. And more of us now are into that fresher air, so for many of us, temperatures a little closer towards average for the time of year, 6 to 9 degrees Celsius. More wet and windy weather, though, is going to be arriving from midweek, so stay tuned to the forecast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it is 6 o'clock and welcome to Nana Akwe's special programme as we continue our coverage of the terrible terrorist attack in Bondi Beach, Australia. Now, we'll be bringing you all of the latest news, but first, let's get your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good evening. Your top stories at 6 o'clock. At least 12 people have died, including a British-born rabbi, and dozens more injured after a terror attack at Bondi Beach in Australia. 2 gunmen fired towards a crowd, including families, in what police have called a target attack on Sydney's Jewish community. 29 people have been taken to hospital. One of the gunmen has been killed and the other is in a critical condition. The loss of life, though, could have been far greater were it not for the actions of a brave bystander who tackled one of the gunmen and disarmed him. Eyewitnesses have described the incident as terrifying.
I just heard what sounded like fireworks going off, and it was just multiple going off. So I sort of opened the blind to see what was going on, and I just saw an older lady get shot, and she was on the floor. Saw an older guy get shot, very badly injured on the left-hand side, and I just saw a bunch of people screaming, run towards me. I didn't know what was going on.
It's kind of like, I don't know, fish in a barrel. Like, the guy had I think of what I've been told, he had an automatic rifle, big gun, standing on the bridge and just target practice.
The shooting took place in Archer Park during an event to celebrate the first day of the Jewish holy festival of Hanukkah. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has described it as an act of evil anti-Semitism.
This is a targeted attack on Jewish Australians on the first day of Hanukkah, which should be a day of joy, a celebration of faith. An act of evil anti-Semitism, terrorism, that has struck the heart of our nation. An attack on Jewish Australians is an attack on every Australian, and every Australian tonight will be, like me, devastated.
Leaders around the world have also condemned the terror attack. Among them, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has described it as sickening, and King Charles says he's appalled and saddened. A menorah has been lit in Trafalgar Square in central London to mark the first day of Hanukkah. The chief rabbi said the victims of what he described as an unspeakable atrocity are in their hearts and prayers. Police forces across the UK say there'll be an increased officer presence among Jewish communities. In other news, a person of interest has been detained in connection with a mass shooting in the US, which killed 2 people and injured 9 others. The gunman opened fire in a building at Brown University in Rhode Island while exams were taking place. The Ivy League College in Providence was placed under lockdown as more than 400 police officers searched for the attacker. Those injured are in a critical but stable condition. And delegations from the US and Ukraine have arrived in Germany to discuss a proposed peace plan to end the war with Russia. Donald Trump's special envoy is meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders ahead of a summit in Berlin tomorrow. Steve Witkoff has been leading US attempts to mediate between Ukraine and Russia. The first draft of the peace agreement has been criticised for favouring the Kremlin's demands, including putting pressure on Kyiv to make territorial concessions. Those are the latest. Let's get back to Nana.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good evening. It is 3 minutes past 6 o'clock. Let's get straight now to our GB News Home Security Editor, Mark White, who joins us now to give us the latest on that terror attack in Australia. Mark.
Well, police still piecing together the exact circumstances of the attack that unfolded just before 7 o'clock in the evening in Sydney, when real panic broke out. We want to show you some of the images, actually give you an indication of what happened at about 7:15 in the evening when these shots rang out. First images we can bring you are of Bondi Beach itself, with so many people, hundreds of people that were on that beach just running, trying to get away from the areas. Others, running from the water itself, others just getting off the beach. I mean, the trouble was that they were hearing shots ringing out. Some of them just didn't know where the shots were coming from, but and indeed some were running towards the area where the shots were actually emanating from. So a really confusing picture on this world famous beach. Many people, of course, that have been to Sydney will have been to Bondi Beach. It's one of the go-to destinations for tourists and Australians alike. And then further away from the beach, we can show you the next video sequence, again shot by a member of the public, with people just running, trying to get on buses, actually. A real scene of panic there. You can absolutely understand why, because as these images were playing there, the shots were still ringing out from the gunmen themselves that were on a nearby bridge, firing long-barreled weapons down towards the crowds of people, specifically targeting those that were at that Hanukkah candle lighting ceremony to mark the beginning of this 8-day festival of light. So these people that are running are just in that area where the festivities were beginning and just desperate to get out of the area. Another video we can show you that is quite graphic. We've had to blur quite a lot of the images, shows the immediate aftermath with, again, police responding, running to try to do what they can for those that have been caught up in this. You can see there a pump action shotgun lying down beside that palm tree that was used by one of the attackers to get up close and to shoot as many people clearly as they could. And we know, of course, that many people have been injured, 29 injured, all described as having been seriously injured, on top of 11 people, innocent members of the public, who were shot dead. One of the gunmen also shot dead by police. And that pump action shotgun you were looking at there, we can show you the moment that that weapon was actually wrestled free from the terrorist by a hero, a member of the public, a local greengrocer, just running between a couple of parked cars, just managed to get that shotgun off him, point it back at the attacker. The attacker then sort of stumbles off, and actually the greengrocer there, having put the shotgun down, then goes after that attacker to throw a stone at him, just to try and make sure that he gets out of the way and nowhere near that weapon again. And that terrorist at that point went back onto the bridge to join his terrorist counterpart back on the bridge, continuing to fire down towards those members of the public that were at this Festival of Lights ceremony. And it was effectively then a shootout between those two terrorists and members of New South Wales Police, with eventually, some minutes later, the police managing to take out the first that first individual that you saw having the weapon wrestled from him, and then the second individual was shot by police as well. We can tell you who that second terrorist was. He was a 24-year-old by the name of Naveed Akram. He was a Pakistani national originally from Lahore, appears to have come to Australia at some point. We don't know exactly what his immigration status was, but there was a picture, his driving licence, that was recovered nearby, and that's helped the police identify him. There's a picture, a still image of him on that bridge that they used as their sort of area to target the members of the public from as well. We can clearly see it's the same man. This individual lived, according to his driving licence, at an address in the Bondi suburb of Sydney, and that home address now is the scene of intense police activity. An armed police unit moved into a house there a little earlier. Forensic teams now going through that address looking for any clues, because what is one of the most urgent things for investigators to establish is whether anyone else had oversight of this, whether people knew what was happening. Of course, if they knew and didn't tell, that's a criminal offence in itself. But aside from that, are there other people out there that may be planning something similar? Police need to answer that question as soon as possible so that they can reassure the people of Sydney that actually the threat, there is no wider threat at this time. And some terrible and sad news to bring amidst this tragedy as well, with one of the 11 innocent people that were shot dead having been identified. A British-born rabbi, Rabbi Eli Schlanger, who was 41 years of age. He was a father of 5 young children, the youngest born just a couple of months ago, a young boy. He leaves behind those 5 young children and his wife. Rabbi Schlanger was born in the northwest of London and moved with his family to New York as a child. Later he moved to Australia and married an Australian woman. Interestingly, we found out that Rabbi Schlanger had spoken to Australian media after that horrific terrorist attack at the Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester.